happy hour. Night attacks happy hour. Night attacks happy hour. Dig.
Oh, ho hum, Justin. Just another Friday
Yeah.
afternoon in the COVID pandemic.
Yeah, with happy hour, I know people are enjoying the extra content, and we're always happy to do it. But every once in a while, we got a guest that rolls through. Some of the people from Modern Rogue have stopped by. Bonnie has been a frequent guest. Bryce, our
producer
co-host on Night Attack,
extraordinaire, yeah.
our producer, and so we do have a guest. Hopefully, people will enjoy him. Do you want to do the intro or should I?
No, goodness, I am so not qualified to do the intro. Yeah, please do
I'll
the
introduce
intro.
myself.
Oh, wait.
Well, there we go. Ladies and gentlemen,
Since
I
I
will turn
see
it
myself,
over.
ladies and gentlemen, I introduce to you
WWE Hall of Famer Mark Henry. How do we get...
Hall of Famer, former
two-time
champion,
Olympian.
two-time Olympian, the proprietor of the Hall of Pain.
Yes.
He's got a lot left in the tank,
Yes.
folks. And he is Mark Henry joining us on the Night Attack Happy Hour. Thank you so much. This was such a surprise. I had no idea that you were going to be on until
Listen,
like
I live-
5 seconds before.
I've lived my whole life wanting to be on a night attack. I've been trying to get this, and finally,
Oh, man.
I'm home. I'm
Who
home.
knew? Who knew?
Somebody's getting attacked.
There is somebody
know.
right now who is convinced that this is all a prank, and there's no way this is all
Exactly.
actually happening.
And you are live here. This isn't on Skype. This isn't on Zoom. You are there.
I'm in the building.
Yeah.
In the building here. In
Yeah, in the
Modern Rogue
palatial
HQ.
palace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got to show off the sound stage. We got to talk a little bit about. Can we do plugs right up front? We'll do them again at
Sure,
the end when
yeah.
there's more people here. But the new show is called Not Another Sports Show. Right?
Not a sports show.
Not a sports show, and right now it's just on YouTube or
Just on YouTube.
not a sports.
One. Or you can go to Nota, N-O-T-A, Sports One.
Yeah, there we go.
There you go.
So-
James Rode was one of our first guests.
We were talking before the show about how what a curious world carving out a niche on the internet is, and how you kind of need to point to something that's broken in your world and how you're on a quest to fix it. Whether for me it was magic, and then for Mono Rogue it was us being doughy 40-year-old man children, and on Night Attack there's not enough honesty but I think you guys are so well positioned because like you guys have an all-star group of folks in your very first few episodes.
Yeah, and the big part of it is Mark Cuban was telling me last year before COVID hit. I was asking him because he was so accomplished and so successful, like, man, how do you get this done? And he was like, Mark, you need to use your contacts. He said, you go on your phone and call 50 people that you know that love you, they trust you, and they know you're not going to mislead anybody in any kind of way. And you ask those people to help you. Come on your shows, be involved in whatever projects you're involved in. And that's what I'm doing. I'm using my contacts. And now, who would have known that, Mark Henry knows Brian Brushwood.
I mean, it's the most natural connection on the planet.
so
I
this-
can't.
I did it until 5 seconds ago, and I talk to Brian every day.
And so this is masterclass for me.
Yeah.
So Brian knows more about this industry of radio and multimedia than most people will ever learn. And it's good that the people that you respect and that you care about, they'll pass that information on to you. Sometimes for a small fee,
No fee. I promise.
No fee. No fee.
But this is a fee I'm willing to pay
By the way-
because it's going to help me forever.
By the way, how funny is this, Brian? When all the COVID stuff happened, and all of a sudden the top television shows in the world, the Today shows, the people that had all the big fancy studios, all the radio shows that had the big television simulcast, everybody was learning the lessons that we were learning
10
years and years ago, like
Yeah.
bootstrapping a show to broadcast it live on the internet. How is there any? That's why we started the happy hour, because we just figured we'd do more content in a world where other people were trying to struggle through it. And now, what time is a flat circle? As Mark Henry has now joined the show, now coming to the Modern Rogue Studios.
Can I-
Well, you know how to blow somebody's head up, don't you?
Don't worry. I'll
compliment-
start asking. I'm just trying to get you buttered up, so when I start asking my very annoying wrestling fan questions, you won't just
That
wanna
I
smash
won't
my
want to
head
kill
like a
you.
grape.
I still want to
Yeah.
kill you.
I know, exactly. That's what. No, I got 3 or 4 more compliments loaded up before I even start, so we'll be good.
By the way, I should disclose that that one of your kids was asking if he could smash one of the glass bottles over his head, the sugar glass bottles. I explained that I think it gave Jason Murphy a concussion, and then I asked my producer John. I said, "Hey, could you go make sure they're having a good time?" And just,
Just smash him across the head. He's got a lot of hair. He'll be all right.
Yeah, no, that's a upcoming episode. We made a sugar glass bottle and we smashed it over my head, and it sucked. It wasn't fun. I saw stars, but then it's like we thought, oh well, now it's my turn to smash it over Jason's head, not knowing that the ones on Jason's head were twice as thick, and I think I literally gave him a concussion. It was
You put one of those Bugs Bunny knots where it goes.
Yep. Yeah. Literal thing. Real.
There is a fine line between I'm going to smash a sugar glass bottle over your head and I'm going to just smash a glass bottle over your head.
I mean,
Like,
at some point you wish for the
it just
for
becomes
the latter.
glass.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
You know who Santino Marella is.
I
Wrestling
do.
fan.
Yes.
Justin
yes,
does.
Yeah.
See, this
So-
is why I have a co-host, is I can always toss to him.
I'm going to help you with your wrestling fix
Okay.
Okay.
as it relates to the Bugs Bunny knot growing.
Okay.
I wrestled Santino Marella in Baltimore one time.
Okay.
And I threw him out of the ring and I beat him up so much. They counted the match out. They ringing the bell. Go, stop it, Mark. Leave him alone. And I turned my head for 1 second to this referee and told him, if you put your hand on me one more time, you're going to be next. And while this is happening, Santino Marella's getting a folding chair. And he is
Which is made of sugar glass, right?
Oh, I wish it would have been. Oh my God, I wish it would have been made of sugar glass. And he swung as hard as he could humanly swing this chair. And I turned and bow. And the look on his face was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I can't believe I just did that. And
Whatever that look is.
instantaneously, the knot was like, on my head. And I went, oh, and it turned into like big brother and little brother, and you don't want mom to find out that you just got. And he came and put his hand on my shoulder. He said, "Oh my God, are you okay?" And I was like, "No!" And the people in Baltimore, they were laughing. I mean, it was the whole crowd. This whole serious, angry fight moment turned into 2 guys acting like 8 years old, trying to hide from mom.
Oh, that's so good.
And I still to this day think like that was one of my favorite wrestling moments. And it was one that maybe only people in that market saw, or the people that were on this show that we were on called Velocity, which very few people watched.
Yeah.
It wasn't my fault. I mean, I did my part.
Sure.
But
yeah.
that show sucked. And
There is, like, every so often you have a show that you get to and you're just mad at the promoters, and then the show's over and you're like, so glad the promoters were so bad.
Okay, wait a minute.
So
Hold
glad
on, hold
nobody
on.
saw this.
If this was on Velocity, then it might exist on the internet. Everybody, if you can find Santino versus Mark Henry to see whether or not this moment is somewhere on the
By
internet.
the way,
That would be amazing.
this is the part that I'm looking deeply into Mark's eyes
That
to
would
see
be
whether or
so
not he
good.
approves of this activity.
Oh, I don't mind. I don't
Okay,
mind.
all right, all right.
I've had more embarrassing moments. I dated an 80-year-old woman.
Oh, Brian, you don't even know. Again, like there's just so many. Mark has been part of some of the most iconic angles in wrestling, some of the most emotionally impactful, but also some of the most bizarre. Like you've definitely always had a good sense of humor in terms
Yeah.
of not being afraid to be a comedic character every once
If you
in a while.
want to give more homework, you ask the fans to go and look up Mark Henry doing the Michael Jackson
All right, is this
the dance contest.
is this the correct moment?
No, this would be later in. I mean, it'd be during the match, I guess.
Oh no, but the
I don't think this is the one because
No.
I think there was a finish.
That's Raw. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also,
Yeah,
that's
this
not
is-
Velocity.
yeah.
This
All
is
right.
Raw with what's his face?
The Ryback.
Ryback. God bless him. Me and Ryback beat the hell out of each other, man.
I would
we
imagine, I
really
mean, you
beat
guys-
each other up.
That seems like, you know, when big guys get to wrestle against each other, it seems like that is where it goes. Is you guys will just like lay it in because either of you are gonna go flying across the ring, right? So you gotta
I'm
make it
gonna
look like
impose
two-
my will.
Yeah. Yeah,
It sucks.
it's just two brontosauruses, you know, slapping necks, you know, in the center of the ring.
Slapping necks.
so for those who don't know, let's talk about what you want to promote, like what you're working on.
You know what? I'm on a national radio show on Sirius XM called Busted Open. We're on from 9 to noon Eastern Standard Time. And my co-host, Dave LaGreca, we did our show this morning. And we will do a show tomorrow, me and Ryan McKinnell it's going to come on from 9 to noon, but we're going to do that show early in the morning, like 6 o'clock in the morning. So I always love getting up.
Is that
at
a
5.
live?
I was about to say that's early.
It's recorded.
That's okay.
Okay, so that's
all right.
for
Saturday is
another-
the only non-live show.
All right, tell
Gotcha,
me. Is
gotcha.
this-
I just love to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. 0 dark 30 is what I call it.
This
Sure.
one is labeled Mark Henry versus the
No,
Godfather.
that's
also
not
it?
Santino.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, he's
Santino Marella.
Different guy.
Yeah, all right.
Slightly different. A sprightly Italian versus an actual pimp who had a stable called the Ho Train, Brian.
Oh, so yeah, I stand corrected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I don't expect Brian to know
No.
the history of pro wrestling.
And you know what?
Of
Likewise,
most
I don't
illustrious
expect you.
sport.
I don't expect you to have knowledge of the double lift. That's why we make a good team. We're magicians in our
There
own
you
right.
go. There you go. I can't do the thumb thing.
Yeah, right.
I don't even know how that works. I just do my hands like this and go.
People are
That
asking.
actually is.
Oh, go
sorry,
ahead.
go ahead, Brian.
Oh, I was gonna just explain the connective tissue to anyone who doesn't know.
Sure, yeah. Well, let's set that up. But I do want to
Sets-
talk about the comparisons between magic and wrestling because I think it is something that is
it's
that is
closer.
very interesting. Yeah.
Well, especially with my involvement with the sideshow. So, 2003, I was doing a kind of a combination of sleight of hand and sideshow magic, and I ended up going on tour with Brooks and Dunn, Brad Paisley, Rascal Flatts, as part of something called the Neon Circus. And I happened to run into Pound for Pound, the world's strongest man, which means he's barely taller than me, but was a former world champion arm wrestler. And we've kept in touch, Dennis and I, for 17 years now. And he's one of those guys that is just so motivational and is so encouraging. And he's like, I gotta get you to meet Mark, and you guys would get along so well. And so, we've met a few times.
Yeah.
But in this case, it was an excuse to come on out and see how the property is developed. And then stop me if you've heard this before, Justin. Within minutes, I'm drawing pictures on a whiteboard and explaining how to inspire an audience to be so into your stuff that they get tattoos.
Yes. No, that Brian is want to get there. It does not take much for Brian to start drawing his circle of attention and interest. And well, Brian knows the rest
But it
because he's good
makes
at it, and I'm not.
sense.
Right?
It does. Oh, it does. It's there
If
for
it
a
was,
reason.
I'm telling you, if it was like out there and like loony, like I think Brian fell and bumped
I love
his head.
picturing me telling Mark Henry, and at level 7, you get the power of heat vision.
You begin to pull people into your orbit.
Yes. And for every person you bring in, you'll get 10%.
Yay!
Yeah, there we go. So magic and wrestling is something that I met Brian because I ran a magic website, and I was not a magician, but I covered it because I had a background in journalism and blogging. And what I found out really quickly was that the magic community is very insular. It is very protective. And some of the people inside of it are maybe so protective of it that it gets a little stifling
Delusional.
creatively and delusional. I'm also a wrestling fan who's been reading about the behind the scenes creative stuff in wrestling. And I can't help but see some similarities in those. So I would actually be curious to see a conversation between the two of you guys about trying to be artists in these fields that are very protective. They are very small, and yet you keep trying to move the art forward.
You know what's interesting is I think we're close to the same age. We have witnessed an age, both of us, where I think it's fair to say when both of us started, it was very protectionist as far as methods, informations. In wrestling, I've heard it called Kayfabe. In magic, it's you know the magician's code. And we've watched people react differently to various pokes and prods of revealing. I'm using air quotes on stuff. And now, I think it
used to hurt.
Well, and I think we are, both of us older on the other side of it, where both arts are weirdly respected more than ever.
Yeah.
Could you speak to what your experience was in that reality?
There was a time when the code, like the magician's code and kayfabe, and the art and the magic and the mystery of pro wrestling being real and being a contest was paramount.
Sacrosanct.
It was the number one thing.
Yeah.
It's a contest, and you would hear the announcers, this contest,
right,
like it's pre-programming and to get you there. When kayfabe was broke and they said, listen, we don't want the government to sue us, and we don't want to have to pay this 40% tax for medical and for this and that, then it all came out.
So there was an iconic single moment in the world of wrestling where a switch was flipped.
That was
where Vince McMahon was in court and had to say, pro wrestling is a show. We are magician. We are, and the thing about it, some people stink at it. It's like you seen that magician that goes to make the dove disappear, and then he pulls the curtain too fast, and you see the dove like falling into this little box, and he's like, when those wrestlers are on, I'm like this. Dear God, please let this be a low moment in radio or television so nobody saw this and we can go on with our lives. But like, I take a lot of pride in the fact that there are people that I've hit as hard as you can hit, but I'm going to hit you somewhere where it's safe for me to hit you like that. And you build up this tolerance of pain where you say, okay, man, I'm mentally prepared for you to waffle the hell out of me. Like, go ahead and do it. Like, and it's the communication that you don't want to, that, back in the day, you didn't want to talk about that.
Right.
But there's an artistry about pro wrestling. Like, you have to have some tolerance, a lot of tolerance, but you also have to use psychology. Everybody knows Mark Henry's the strongest guy on earth.
Yeah.
If I'm going to use my mask as a prop. If I pinch somebody, they're going to say, oh my God, he's pinching him. But if I I make more exaggeration and more pantomime about what I'm about to do. And then the announcer says, ladies and gentlemen, please cover your children's eyes.
Yeah.
It looks, Mark Henry is going to pinch him right in the small skin area under the arm where it's very tender, and he's giving this breakdown. And then you see me do it, and I'm turning, and guys are, like you will feel.
You'll feel that pain. Yeah.
And that's the magic. Is you create that magic, and everybody can't do it because some people are dumb as a bag of rocks.
So the way I think of it is it's a game of trying to get to checkmate. You're playing chess, and in the case of wrestling, you've got two players who with every subtle eye motion and movement and nonverbal communication are communicating with each other, doing an amazing dance. And when the crowd howls in horror and pain and agony, congrats, you won, you checkmated, right?
Yeah.
For a magician, it's I'm gonna come into town with a bunch of secrets. I'm gonna lead you down one path. I'm gonna jump down something else. And when you say to yourself, I cannot fathom how that is possible, congrats, you got checkmated. And there's two ways to checkmate people. There's one, which is to study all the greats, to learn all of the book openings, to practice the fundamentals, to understand how every piece in every great story has ever gone. Or the other way is to make sure that nobody in the village knows the rules of chess. And then it's very easy to check.
Make it up as you go along.
Yeah, right. Well, and I think for a long time, the protectionists, as I've come to think of them in magic, and I suppose the Kayfabists, and I would love to hear the politics on how people felt about those moments in wrestling. Like when you're making a cartel, it's a lot easier to reduce the knowledge for everyone, and it's a lot easier to make a living as a chess player getting to that checkmate moment. Was there, man? I guess what I'm asking, and maybe we're reaching too far back, maybe even before your time. I would love to hear what it was like from the perspective of people who, all things being equal, would prefer that nobody knew nothing about nothing, so that it would be easy to checkmate people.
Most definitely. I mean, there was this stigma about, Colin Cowherd. Colin Cowherd on
Sure. Yeah.
Fox. He called pro wrestling fans mouth breathers and people that have been living under a rock. And I always looked at these incredibly smart and educated people as being the dumbest of all fans in any genres as it related to pro wrestling, because you're trying to still defend, hey, what they're doing is not real. Why do you like that?
Yeah.
But nobody's saying anything except for you.
Yeah.
You're the only one that's upset because you felt duped. You felt lied to. You felt betrayed by the people when you found out that wrestling was a show. I want you to go to the circus, and I want you to see how the tent master or the ring master keeps everything revolving around him, and the people that orchestrate dancing with the bear. The people that do the dance with the tigers, and the people that stand on top of the elephant, and that work the trapeze, and yada, 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 and the strong man in the circus.
Yeah.
So all of these things are revolving planets around the center of that guy, the ringmaster. Don't you think that the ringmaster just might know something that everybody else don't know?
Yeah.
I'm not offended.
Well,
that he is smart and knows what's going on around that world. Colin Cowherd is a comet flying by this universe, and he's only getting bits and pieces, and he's gone.
Yeah.
So I can't respect somebody that's a comet flying by this universe than understanding the people that are actually in it, that are feeding their families
Oh, sure.
off of that work. So,
well, here, let
I'll leave
me
it
ask
right
you
there.
this, because this is another similarity that I've seen, and I know I've seen it in Magic, but I'm curious on wrestling. It is a very protective industry, even within itself. Like I saw in Magic, a lot of kids that would get into stuff and they would invent some little trick. They'd post it on a message board. It would get popular, and Magic's not a gigantic industry, so everybody would see it really, really fast. And then almost immediately, the old guardians would kind of attack the new hotness, right? That it would be like, oh, well, that's just like this other thing, and that's not that big of a thing, or they ripped off this person who published it in this magazine that came out 50 years ago, blah, blah, blah. I know you were unique, Mark, because you came into wrestling as more of a fan because you had the Olympic stuff and the strongman stuff. And then all of a sudden we're thrust into a very comparative to somebody else who would have started out a high position. Did you experience anything like that in the wrestling industry?
oh my God, man. Like if you listen to some of the podcasts that I've done, I name names. I go into detail about me being targeted for ribbing and this hazing because I came into the world of pro wrestling as a star already. Like people knew who I was. And there were guys that had wrestled for 15, 20 years and they had never made in a career what I made in the first year that I came into the business, which was the first level of hatred. And then the second level of hatred was I was pretty sharp. I listened well. And you might not think that I soaked in that knowledge, but when you see me on television or you hear me on radio, I implement what I've learned very quickly. So when I got into wrestling, and my first match was a pay-per-view, and people could not see through my magic. And guys were like, damn it, I was hoping he would fail, fall on his face and just blow up, just destroy the whole planet. Like, no, I didn't. And the lastly, nobody would teach me.
Yeah.
There were guys that had the knowledge to say, hey man, if you did this and this,
You'd be
awesome.
able to sell
Then you'd
this
be-
better, and
You'd be
all
on
will
top.
make more money. But these, like I said, even in pro wrestling, there were guys that wrestled for 15, 20 years, but they were comets.
Yep.
They were going by so
wow.
fast
Okay.
that they couldn't even absorb what the bigger picture was. And that's where I had my disagreements and stuff. And at first, it didn't help none that I had a chip on my shoulder and I was a little ignorant to some things, and I would fight first and then I would conversate about it later.
Wait, were you prepared for how insular the community
No.
was when you came in? Like,
And Vince apologized to me for that. He said I didn't even think about other people.
of everybody feeling threatened by the fact that you're legitimately the world's strongest man, and so on.
or not just being the world's strongest man, but me coming into a world that belonged to them.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And at first I was taking this guy. When you wrestled me, you were gonna lose. I was the principal, but I had only been there for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
You've been there 15 years, and you got $500, and I got $5,000.
I'm
Like-
sure they all felt totally comfortable.
Oh, man.
They said, well, that's just the biz. What can you do?
So Vince apologized for that. He said, something's got to change. And with that being said, then they created the developmental wrestling system. And that was his way of fixing that. So guys started to embrace the fact that, hey, you're getting paid to do a job. Half of your job is to teach and cultivate the future of the business.
Do you think wrestling in general is in a better place now?
Way
for
better
these structures?
place. You have people that are getting counseling for different problems that they had.
I mean, first of all, life on the road, like being exposed to the raw ecstasy of thousands of people screaming and cheering your name, I truly believe breaks some part of the human brain.
You feel like you're invincible. You feel like I can't be hurt.
And even life on the road. For me, it was
People become subservient.
It was almost
to you.
an addiction. When we found out we were pregnant with my third daughter, and I made the decision, like, I'm going to open an online magic store and I'm going to focus more on YouTube. The problem is, on YouTube, you don't hear the applause. You don't hear the chants of your name. You don't see the standing ovations. What you hear is 12-year-olds saying nasty crap about you. And
he don't know he don't know anything.
Right. And it's I'm glad to hear that there's some kind of therapeutic, like, decommissioning process that happens. Like, you did your tour of duty. Now let's make sure you're ready for polite society once you finish.
Yeah. And I think another thing that happens on the road is you start to self-medicate. And there, in entertainment, in any genre, drugs were prevalent, alcohol, people overate, people indulged in fantasies that only because they were a star that would happen. That's why Hugh Hefner had the Playboy Mansion. That's why Luke from the
Two Live Crew. Yeah, Uncle Luke.
Like Uncle Luke, they had their clubs and all of this stuff. Like, you start to self-medicate, and it's easy to get into stuff that is very hard to get out of. This new world of wrestling is very corporate. As a matter of fact, educated people. At one time, out of 160 or 136 wrestlers, like 75 had college degrees.
Wow.
I challenge you to
was
find
not the case.
any genre that has that high of education, because it's required, because wrestling, for lack of a better term, is psychology driven. The stories are simple psychology sometimes. Big versus small, fast versus slow,
cool versus
good
story.
versus evil. We had a handicap character. We had Nick Dinsmore was Eugene, and he would come out and act like a mentally challenged kid, like person that had issues. And when somebody hit him, I remember a time in Philadelphia where, man, they had to call the police because like 10 people came out of the crowd and was like, don't hit him again.
They stepped fully into the spell.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was over. They had to send Nick Dinsmore, Eugene, back to the locker room and deal with these fans. Like, hey, guys, like, you have got to go back to your seats or we're going to take you to jail. Like, real jail, not wrestling jail.
No.
Wrestling jail would be awesome.
Here, something.
Go ahead.
Let me ask this. Something that Brian and I have talked a lot about is the idea of like scarcity mentality versus abundance mentality. That there is the idea that some people look at it as there's a zero-sum world, and if you have success, that is success that could have been mine, or that is what one less success coupon that people have taken that I now don't have an opportunity to have. In wrestling, it seems like that exists, which is odd because, I mean, for the career that you had, you worked with The Rock and Stone Cold and John Cena and everybody. It's like what you want is a roster full of these people. You want everybody to be supernova gigantic stars and not to take that away. But it seems like that does persist.
That's my move.
Oh, geez.
Listen,
that's a fun game. Magician or wrestler? That's my move. I invented that. No, mine's different because it uses a blue deck, sir. So it's totally different.
I use a blue deck of cards, not a red one.
Okay, that's not also a joke. That's like a literal conversation.
Oh, stop it.
No, 100% real, 100% real. Yeah, the scarcity mentality.
That's wrestling. And I always thought, and I was told this, by the people that taught me the biggest form of flattery is to adopt a style or something from someone that came before you so they can continue to live on.
Mm-hmm.
And you always mention the person that did it. Just like, recently, as of yesterday, in Webster's dictionary, they put the word jabroni.
Jabroni, Brian.
You
know what a jabroni
Yeah,
is?
yeah, sure. It's a sucker, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But The Rock made that term famous.
Yes.
But that came from the Iron Sheik. Iron Sheik made that up. It was in his head, and he was like, "You jabroni, you don't know anything. You're stupid. Yeah. You're a jabroni." So The Rock grew up in the locker room as a little boy with his dad, hearing the Sheik call people that, and that's what he called people that he deemed less than smart.
Yeah.
It's funny.
When that word got put in the dictionary, what was the first thing you think The Rock did?
That'd be probably.
Hopefully
He
text
put
the Iron
the
Sheik.
Sheik over and said,
exactly.
"Hey, this is the
whoa.
Iron Sheik's word."
Right.
Bubba, Iron Sheiky, baby.
Come on, Sheiky,
Jabroni,
baby. Sheiky,
number
love
one.
you. I love you, Sheiky, number one. You have gimmick for Sheiky?
Yeah.
But, that was what you're supposed to do. But, we don't get a lot of that.
That's
apparently
crazy
in the magic world, too.
Yeah.
It is.
If I'm being quiet, it's only because I still fear the magic world, and you have little to fear from the world of wrestling.
Hey, you need to fear them, too.
They both team up against us.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, it is fascinating, the parallels between those two communities. It is something that I've always and there's a lot of fans I know of wrestling inside the magic community. I don't know if that's the same, vice versa, but it is one of those things where it's an art that's undeniable, yet the communities within it are just born of secrecy, which means there's just so much weird culture and some of it's great, some of it is actually you can learn a lot from, and some of it is very regressive,
and some of it is science. It's like, as a little kid, the biggest thing for me was Wide World of Sports. It used to come on ABC on Saturday mornings, and they would always show Evel Knievel jumping over these cars or buses or something, whatever, the Grand Canyon. He jumped over everything. The Eiffel Tower.
His career.
Yeah,
he jumped over it. He did it all. But they tested, and I never knew that they tested those bikes. They loaded them up, and they would launch those things at 75 miles an hour just to see if the bike with the weight on it that was equal to Evel Knievel's weight would fly that far, and then it would crash and burn. But the whole point was, let's see if this will work before we put a human on it. I always assumed that Evel Knievel just said, "Hey, let's line up 32 buses. I'm gonna jump at."
I mean, that's certainly the way it was presented. He
just walks out of the bar, puts the last shot glass down, upside down. It just takes up the kickstand. Brrr, all right, come on.
But even with all the science, there were times where he would get and clear and land, and the bike would lose control, and he'd flip-flop and survive. But there were times where, he broke 5 or 6 bones.
Yeah, sure.
And
but even then, I'm sure that he had a sense of the safe range. As long as I'm going about this fast when I take off and land at about this level, outside of smacking into the front end of a bus,
I'm going to live.
Yeah.
And it's the same. I think it's the same with magic. I think it's the same with pro wrestling. You know what you signed up for.
Yeah. So there was one weird thread that we followed down. We were talking about pro wrestling by virtue of being it's okay to say scripted, right? By virtue of being scripted, I think it might be the most moral sport on the planet. By which I mean, so in Jonathan Haidt's book, The Righteous Mind, he talks about how our brains are 90% chimpanzee and 10% bee. and there are certain times we whip ourselves into a frenzy where we feel part of something bigger than ourselves. That's why every Sunday we go to, or as humans, we sing the same songs and we watch a football game or whatever. But it essentially is left up to chance, and half of that audience has to go home feeling terrible. And I feel like maybe wrestling is more moral for making sure that the maximum number of people go home feeling very, very good after that ecstasy moment. Is that too far out there? Am I talking out of school there?
No, not at all. And even if you don't have a crowd leave happy, then you have to take the person that is the most hated
and make
him even more hated,
so that the next crowd will be even happier.
So the next crowd that season will be happier to see him get his head handed to him.
Yeah.
And that is the beauty of pro wrestling, is the psychology says, let's leave them wanting more.
And there's definitely
cliffhanger.
But even then, and I've been to plenty of television stuff like that, live television for Raw or SmackDown over the years. A lot of times, especially if the villain is the guy who's standing tall at the very end, the hero's lying down there, or he's just done something dastardly, he's up on the top rope. Soon as that television ends, just for the live crowd, now all of a sudden the other biggest superhero, his music hits, he comes out, whips the living shit out of the villain. So the live crowd is still like, oh my God, that was amazing. They still leave with that buzz, even though television, you're telling a different story.
And that's, you need both. And it's also a way, we always say, leave with your heat. If you're a bad guy, and the good guy has bumped you on your ass and told you to break out, then how do you get your heat back and make everybody go, ooh, is if that guy leaves his jacket on the floor or something that belongs to him, and they take it and they throw it down and they stomp on it, and the good guy comes out to get his stuff, and then you leave with that heat, with that understanding of, I'm still going to let you know that I'm the bad guy. And Tony Montana was 100% correct. He said, you need me. All of you need me. You look at me and you thumb your noses. You look at me like I'm a piece of garbage. But if it wasn't for me, what would you have?
Yeah.
And how many people do you know that have been so successful in their lives? Money, the women, the traveling, the education, whatever. And they're at their homes drinking themselves to death because they're miserable. Because not enough people pat them on the back. Not enough people say, oh, wow, you got 10 degrees on the wall. That's so great. But in sports and in magic and in wrestling, we get accolades immediately.
Oh, yeah.
Gratuitous applause. Hey, Brian, man, I'm a big fan. Like, you're the best. Like, golly, man, like one of these days, I just hope that I could be a quarter of you. Man, that feels good.
Yeah, dude, and you get it instantly. I mean, and what an efficient medium. Like, they're clapping, I'm doing good.
Yay! And
they're booing, I'm doing bad.
Oh, yeah. And I'm telling you, I'm going to tell you, in my career, it has felt better to be the heel than it did to be the babyface.
Ooh, when did you figure that out? Was that like a moment to realize in what order did you do them, and when did you pick a side?
In 2011.
Oh, this is Brian. This is a moment.
This area called the Hall of Pain. I was so disenchanted with all of these Hall of Fame wrestlers that got to come out and wave to the crowd, and they got a payday for coming and waving. They didn't do shit. And I'm like, in my mind, oh my God, this is ridiculous. I'm trying to be the good guy. And then they bring this guy from 20 years ago, and now the crowd loves him more than they love me. It was this self-absorbed hatred. And I said, I'm going to put all of these people in a hall of pain. To hell with their fame. And I went on this tirade of everything that you could do humanly to disrespect somebody.
Yeah, okay, all right.
I mean,
you were that
Brian,
guy.
Brian,
After the shows, the show is over.
Oh, and you're still
Yeah.
playing the game.
I've showered, I've got my bags, and I'm walking to the car. There's 40 people, 100 people outside waiting to wave, to say hi, to get an autograph. And I would open my trunk, I would throw my bag in the trunk, I'd slam it down, and I'd look at all these people, and they're like, come on, come on. And I go, okay, I'm gonna go and sign autographs. And I'd walk, I get about 5 feet away from it, and I go, nah. And I turn and walk all the way back and get in the car. I've had my windows busted out. I've had cars totaled by people beating on them with their hands, and I'm laughing the whole
By the way,
time.
this is why
good.
rental car companies
Don't like
ban
renting wrestlers.
They hate renting to wrestlers. No,
I'll
Brian,
contribute it.
this is something, and at the we're gonna get a little Chris Farley show here, but Brian, you have to take your time to watch. One of the most famous things in wrestling, to blow smoke up Mark's ass a second, is at the beginning of the run that he's literally talking about. He gets one of the most 180 reactions, comes out in the middle. John Cena's at the height of John Cena, comes out and says, you want to know what? It's been a great career. I think I'm going to retire. And John Cena's raising his hand. The crowd's chanting, thank you, thank you. Picks John Cena's ass up, slams him on the ground. And that's the beginning. That's the beginning. But you've never seen, I mean, like in wrestling history, there's probably 10 of the moments, you can name them all, where a crowd went from just big gushing love, adoration, or super excitement to just fuck this guy. This guy is the worst.
I had Hulk. I didn't even know Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
I mean, especially now that he's, carved his path.
Yes. Yeah.
I read the book.
As it turns out,
You read that book.
as it turns out, banging your friend's wife, not even the worst thing.
Not
that can
even
go
the worst
wrong.
thing.
Not even the worst
While
thing
we
that
watched.
can go wrong. Yeah. While we
but-
watched. Yeah.
He called me the next day.
Uh-huh.
And he said, hey, Henry, hell of a job last night. I'm going to let you know right now that I've never been gotten in all of my life of wrestling. He said that was the best work I ever saw.
And he said, I never will be gotten. Also, your winning lotto numbers are 22, 43, 71,
Is
Oh
this,
my
5.
God.
is this really Hulk Hogan?
I just realized Hulk Hogan mentalist. We got to do a Hulk Hogan mentalist. Well, let me tell you something, brother. You're thinking of a sailboat and it's blue. Am I right? Thank you. Take your seat, brother.
Oh my God. But that's like one of I think my biggest compliments is from that whole angle.
And that's crazy because you had such a career leading up to that, and a lot of it bounced around. And
Been
that's
world champion before.
exactly. It's one of those things that I get annoyed with wrestling fans whenever online there's the discourse of, oh, well, this person now they're dancing, or they just did a comedy sketch where they slipped on a banana peel or something, even though they're a gigantic human and they should be dominating as like a big scary guy. And it's like, Mark Henry gave birth to a hand. He like inseminated somebody that gave birth to a hand. And then he went on to have one of the most vicious, violent runs in the history of the sport. It's all a story. All you got to do is tell the story the right way.
And then you turn and you go from this monster to, before COVID hit, I decided that I was going to go do stand-up.
Oh my God!
And
Tell me you have a
So
documentary
you-
crew filming all
I
of this.
did not. I wish I did.
Oh my God.
So most people, when they say, I'm going to start in a little room with 50 people or 25 people and tell some jokes and, some stories and see how that works. I never knew slow motion. My vision is bigger than who I am.
Sure.
Yeah.
My first stand up was 15 minutes at Caroline's in New York. So I went to WrestleMania before I went to anything else.
Yeah.
And I've since done a couple of things with Mick Foley, like who is a very seasoned comedian now. And like I love it because it's people never expect what's coming out of my mouth. And it's very adult content.
Yeah.
I'm not doing Dolph Ziggler type comedy. If you've seen Dolph,
that is a deep cut.
Eliminate that shit from your brain because
Gotcha.
when I go on stage, you're gonna go, "Oh my God, Mark Henry."
Who are your influences stand up wise?
You know, I always loved Red Fox because he told jokes, but he talked about life situations. Richard Pryor was one that did the life situations, but his jokes and voices and pantomimes and things, I'll never be able to reach that, but I'm going to damn sure try.
Oh, I love hearing that, man.
Man, I'll tell you what. Have you heard the Evolution Revolution double album? The Richard Pryor Evolution Revolution?
I can't. I don't think I saw that.
Seek it out. It's the first album is when he was a clean comic, and the second is compilations of stuff that he did after he became Richard Pryor. But a lot of them are like the beginnings of some of the jokes that he eventually took. But especially if you're looking to do that, it's a fascinating listen if you're a Richard Pryor fan.
I'm definitely going to look it up. I actually saw him on the Ed Sullivan show when he had the gray suit on and the black tie, and he was clean cut and he didn't cuss. And it was, I did see that, but I felt like I was watching a man die a death from 1,000 razor cuts.
Oh, because of all the things he wanted to say that
he was not saying nowhere near what he was feeling. And you could tell when, he was like, and he left the stage like, "Thank you."
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, no, not Richard Pryor. There's no way that Richard Pryor ever bombed.
Yeah.
So speaking about what's next, is there a grand vision of where you're headed? I guess this is a good time for us to tell everybody watching live. Not a Sports Show is on YouTube. It's not a podcast yet. Is that correct?
It's not.
Okay.
It's not. We're just doing a show with a lot of really special guests.
We're gonna fix this very quickly.
I'm thinking that I need some assistance from the best guy on the planet, and maybe he can help me.
It's
and
the part
we can
where I
help
get to
each
body
other.
slam you over this.
Oh yeah, like pin me, pay me.
Okay, good.
There's a lot of guys that don't mind doing the job. I'm one of them. But I tell stories, man. Some are real, some are made up. But I always start my sets by saying, "Look, I'm accomplished, but I'm doing this for therapy. I'm doing this for me."
Yeah.
My therapist said that due to the fact that I was a habitual liar, I needed to come up here and explain to everybody that what you're about to hear is me getting it off my chest so I don't take it into my real life because I'm an extremist. And then I proceed to just lie my ass off.
By the way, that's a great position to be in, where it's like once you offer that disclaimer, you're bulletproof. When anybody brings any story to you, you're like, "I'm sorry, did you miss the first line of the show?"
You missed it. You're a comment. It's
right. Yeah, you're a comment.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah. All right, so everybody go to YouTube for right now. Go to Not a Sports Show. Go ahead and subscribe. Thank you so much, Mark Henry. Wow, what a treat.
Appreciate you having me,
This
brother.
is so much fun. Justin, you got anything left?
And tune in tomorrow.
Are you guys
on
live?
Exactly.
SiriusXM.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
9 to noon.
Okay.
Me and Ryan McKenna, we're talking pro wrestling and everything else that goes on in the world and people's gossip. Which is always fun.
But before we punch out, I would love to know just your general vibe on wrestling in the COVID era and where you think we're headed and how it's looking to you and how you're feeling.
We never stop.
Yeah.
Pro wrestling, the world of pro wrestling has never stopped. Everybody is the evolution of what entertainment is today, live and recorded, is primarily owes a debt to pro wrestling because we kept experimenting along the way what works and what doesn't work.
What you got, Justin?
Man, what an honor. An honor to chat with the
It's
great
not the
Mark
last
Henry.
time. Don't give me the farewell.
Don't worry. Everybody, let's get a big round of applause. No,
I'm your new co-host, suckers.
Don't be too nice to me. You won't be able to get rid of me. So Brian learned that lesson a decade ago. But yeah, no, thank you. Everybody follow the Mark Henry on Twitter, and hopefully we do see you back sometime really soon, because here's my new, all right, question for next time. We don't have to answer it now.
I'm done answering.
It seems like every wrestler moves to Austin now. It used to be like Tampa, and now you hear that every wrestler lives in Austin. I have no idea why, but all I know is that
I know why.
Brian's...
I'll tell you next time.
Oh, this motherfucker. All right, we're done. That's it. Too good.
Happy hour. Night attacks happy hour. Night attacks happy hour. Dig.